everybody, this is a video on some of the ways we can take our ideas, our drawings, and put them into on-shape pieces for our toy vehicle project. Okay, so far we've already taken some time to do some research and find other images of toys that we find interesting that we might like to use pieces of or maybe get inspiration from. And we've also spent some time to draw, kind of sketch out in general what we would like our toy vehicle to look like. So the one that we're working from here, it's this beauty right here, that again just has our general shapes, general idea of what we'd like this to look like. Okay, we do have our 2-inch wheel. That wheel is the multi-view given to you, that we do need to use this specific wheel for your toy, but otherwise the rest is mostly up to you. Okay, this one here has the base, it has our front end, our cab, our back end, and an openable rear. Okay, so we're going to take some time and model out this example, and I'll show you guys a little bit of how we can just go from picture to 3D model. Alright, so let's get started. First, what we are going to do is we're going to select a sketch on our front plane. I'm going to either choose the N key on my keyboard, or I'm going to click on the view cube up in the corner. Alright, what we'll start with is just getting the general size and shape of our object, but I'd like to start with a center point rectangle to keep everything centered along our initial plane here. Okay, so starting out, we're going to have our base, and then I'm just going to make two 2-inch circles down here, kind of as placeholders. Okay, we will be making these wheels separately, but at least having our wheel size will allow us to get a better handle of what size we would like to create our other shapes. Okay, in our drawing we had a rectangle, we had a taller rectangle that had a little roof, right? And we had a couple pieces of a trailer bed back here. Okay, just for now, we'll start something like this. Okay, this back end needs to change since we'll wind up having movable parts, but at least for the sake of visualization, this is the beginning of our vehicle. Okay, if we are noticing, do you remember our plane that we created, you guys? We had wheel blocks, okay, for our wheels to actually, for our axles to set in. Okay, for right now I'm creating 2 of these just so that we can visualize it, but when we actually create we only need 1, because remember in our assemblies we can do multiples. Alright, but this is our general scope of our shape that we wanted in this example. So let's grab our dimension tool and let's start to give ourselves some sizes here. So most of our sizes, our measurements, we want in 1/4 inch increments or so. So this was 0.4 something, that's close to 5 inches. Right, this one here is close enough to 7. Alright, again, these are not the same sizes that you need to have, but we are trying to use in general whole numbers or 1/4, 1/8 inch increments. Alright, our height of our piece here might be a little too tall, so maybe let's see what 3 looks like. Probably a bit closer. Alright, our width overall, this is closest to 1 3/4. Okay, our distance within these two is just about 1. Alright, our rear so far is almost 4. Okay, and our tiny little piece back here looks like it's going to be, let's say, 1/4 inch, 0.25 inches. Right, we're still missing a couple dimensions to make sure that this is all relatively even and functional, alright, and consistent. So we do need the height, right, of our little truck, right? Let's say that this is going to be 2 inch. Alright, we need the height of our little hood right here, our little roof. Let's say this is also going to be our 0.25, our 1/4 inch. Okay, and then we are going to need some size for our wheel block. Alright, these little wheel blocks, let's say that they're going to be 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch. Again, you may or may not need to do this for both. In this case, these are going to be their own object, but I'll at least show both for right now. Okay, so for locations, for those, we don't need to worry too much. We will worry about our axles soon, but we do need a circle piece in the centers of our rectangle, so I'm going to actually move one of those over here. We will need a circle in the center, okay, of our squares here. This is going to be 0.5 inches. Okay, we know that size because of the center of our multi-view drawing in our circle. Okay, we could do the same here. Again, those will wind up being the same part. We don't need to waste too much time on that. Okay, so then these would be along the same set. Alright, so far this looks a little bit like a truck. So what we're going to do is we are going to use this sketch quite a few times to be able to create the parts that we would like for our vehicle. I am going to actually make these circles construction lines simply because we're not going to need to use them. They were just there for our reference, and I'm going to accept this sketch. Okay. Alright, from here we can start using our extrude button to at least get our base and a few of our other pieces created. So let's start with our extrude. Let's say we extrude our base. Right? I'm going to choose the symmetric option to make our lives a little easier. Alright, and this one, let's say we make our truck 3 inches wide in this example. So if you notice, our sketch goes away. We don't see it anymore, and we just did all that work to make that sketch. We're going to come back over here to the left in the browser or our feature list and click on the little eyeball so we can see it again. Alright, now we can actually go through and use this same sketch to make the rest of our pieces. Alright, so I'm going to extrude. Let's say we'll extrude our hood. Alright, this was our 1.5 by 1.5 piece. We're going to do our symmetric again. And maybe we want it to be just within the sides of our base. So maybe let's put 2.75. Okay, we got our little hood here. But if you notice, right now, these are two of the same color. Alright, for what we need to do for our project, we need multiple pieces that we can assemble. These would be two separate blocks of wood when we're assembling. So we'll need to double click on our extrude or right click and edit. We actually want to put new up in our options at the top here. We accept that. When we see these change color and we see multiple parts along the bottom here, then we know that we have successfully created multiple parts. Okay, what we could do to make your lives easier later on is we can right click in this menu and rename these pieces. So these don't necessarily need specific names. Let's say this is our base, this is the hood of our car. Alright, then we'll start extruding some of our other pieces. Okay, our cab piece is going to be the full 3-inch size, but again, it needs to be symmetric. It is still new. Okay, we have our piece here. Let's rename that. Make sure we stay organized. Alright, our little roof, we're going to extrude again to 3 inches symmetrically, but again, this needs to be new. So we right click, let's rename, that's our roof. Right, as you see, we're starting to get multiple pieces of our vehicle. All right, let's do our wheel block. So we'll extrude symmetric. We're going to make this 3 inches as well, but we do again need to choose new so that we can use this again. We right click, oop, I misclick. We right click and rename. This is our wheel block. Right, we're almost there. Now these are the pieces that we kind of need to think about. So the rear of our vehicle would actually really be a box with a few slices of wood, basically. So what we may need to actually do is we may need to edit this sketch to add a little more detail in here. So what we'll start with, let's go back to our original sketch. I'm going to double click and choose N so that we can view it normal. Okay, I'm going to create one new little rectangle here and dimension this distance to also be 0.25, that 1/4 of an inch, the same as our rear. Okay, I'm going to accept that sketch. All right, and let's make our first piece of our truck bed. All right, I'm going to extrude this piece. It's going to be our full 3 inches. It's going to be a new part, and it's going to be symmetric. And I accept that. All right, we have the front portion of our truck bed. All right, this middle piece that we have here, we do need, but we don't need it actually on this plane that it is. We need this along the 2 edges of our truck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a sketch. Instead of choosing one of the original planes, I'm going to choose that front edge of the truck. So now when I view normal to, it's still on the same view. We still look at the front side. But now, if you notice the plane that's been created, it's along the front edge, oops, the front edge of our truck. All right. But what we could do now is redraw our rectangle and have to measure things out. But that takes a lot of time and effort. So instead, we're going to use the Use or the Project button up in the top. And click on that, and then we can click where our rectangle is. And if you notice, okay, it takes that same box and pushes it all the way out to the plane that we are trying to work on. So you don't have to remeasure anything. All right, we're going to accept that sketch. We're going to extrude this. Right, in this case, opposite direction, so we can use our little arrow, and we only want this to be 0.25 inches. Alright, so we have most of our portion so far. Alright, this piece here we gotta rename. This is the front bed panel. Okay, this is gonna be our side bed panel. Alright, we don't need to remake this side panel for the other side since we'll be doing that in our assembly. Alright, but we do need to figure out how we're going to connect our little moving piece back here. Okay, so we have a couple ways that we could do this. We could create an axle with some tabs, would be one way to do it. Let's do it that way. Okay, so what we're gonna try, we're gonna see if this works while we're doing this together here, is we'll basically make a, as my voice dies again, a circular loop that'll sit on here, that'll have an axle through it, and be able to attach to our little back panel as my voice starts dying. That's fun. Alright, so if we want to start doing something like that, let's say we wanted to edit our sketch again. We'll go back to there. We'll double click on our first sketch and to view normal to, and let's say we just really want to have that we're going to have a little axle, which we are going to pretend we have access to. So this is going to be 0.125, so 1/8 of an inch. All right, and then we're going to make a larger circle inscribed. Oop, that is not 5, but 0.5 inches. All right, what we'll do is we want this to be fully loose. All right, we're going to have this be in the center or in line with the center, so I'm going to use our vertical constraint to use the center of our piece, and apparently not the center if it doesn't want to agree with me. All right, that's fine. We're going to make a point in the middle, and then we'll use our vertical constraint, okay, to line those up. And we'll scooch this down a little bit. Again, we're not really using specific measurements at this point, and that's okay. All right, I am going to use our trim tool though, right? Our little scissors, and we'll trim out some of the extra pieces of the circle. And now that I'm looking at it, I am realizing this is a very tall, maybe we'll do, yeah, 1/4 inch instead. So we have less space sitting in between there. So I'm going to accept that, and let's extrude this. So this we're going to extrude, let's say as our new part. We're going to do this symmetrically, and we're just going to leave this at 1 inch. Okay, we're going to need to create our base piece, right, basically with some holes for an axle to go through it, and let's figure out how we're going to do that. So let's accept that there. All right, and so originally our rectangle we were just going to create from this sketch, but instead, now that we're looking at it, we do need our rectangle to have this perfect gap in the middle of it if we want this to turn correctly. So what we'll try instead, just like before when we needed to make a new sketch on a new surface, we created a sketch and we clicked, this time we're going to click on the rear of our truck. Okay, I'm going to view normal to, and I want to create a rectangle using a lot of these lines. So I'm going to go get that project tool, I'm going to click on the rectangle face we have here, and I'm also going to click on this little bump that we've created. Okay, if I turn, I can see the general size and shape. I can see that we're missing a couple lines here. We're close, so I'll click this edge and this edge. Okay, so now we have fully enclosed surfaces here. Alright, so we are going to accept. So that's as easy as it can be. I'm going to start hiding some of the planes. I just clicked the P button to hide most of our planes. Alright, and we are going to extrude this little shape. So by default it should omit the little curved section that we had just tried to select around. We need this to go the opposite direction, so it's going towards our shape. This is going to be 0.25, and we're going to accept. Oops, but, oh, never mind, it just circled back to the other piece. Alright, so we're going to right click and rename our rear axle holder. We're just making up names at this point. Rear door. Okay, and we're pretty close here. So what we can do is we do need a hole to go through the base of this piece. And we're actually really going to need some curves on this too, when we really think about it. But for right now, what we're going to worry about is at least sticking a hole through there, and then we'll curve it off. Okay, so we're going to sketch on the same side. Right, and we want to use the hole. Right? And now that we're realizing it, as I'm saying this, it would really be helpful if this was a full circle that we could use to curve the back end here. So what I'm going to do as my voice continues to die, which is always really nice. In a sarcastic kind of way. Alright, our sketch 3, nope, not sketch 3, sketch 2. Nope, I am forgetting that this was all the way back in sketch 1 that we just added. Alright, we are going to make sure that this is going to be enough to hold a full circle. Okay, that's not the most effective way of doing it. So we'll measure this out and say that this is... That doesn't seem quite right, but 0.125. Okay, we should be good on that run. Okay, so it automatically heightens it, adds the height, and it automatically cuts out into this portion. Alright, now we're good to start taking a look at this back end here. Alright, if you notice it actually moved the circle as well, and then we're going to add our own nice little circle here. Alright, that'll meet with the end. Yeah. Alright. Actually, no. We're going to undo that. We're going to do this again. And I want it to be tangent to the edges over here. So I'm just going to make a circle, connect it to the side. Alright. And then we're going to trim. Except I didn't use the use button yet. So we're going to use this side. Hopefully, come on. There we go. Alright, and then we should be able to trim this portion off. So what we're going to wind up doing is actually using our Extrude Remove tool. So if I hit Extrude, I choose my little corners and my center. These need to remove through this part. Okay. Oops, we are missing a tiny little piece here. That's the piece that I was looking at before. We were trying to find it. Okay, we're intersecting for some reason. So we will have to fix that. Alright, let's click on... Alright, if you got this far, and yours is doing this, it's a little problematic. Slightly. But we'll accept this for right now. Since it seems like in our sketch, since I expected our shape to not be intersecting, that we have an issue. Alright, for the sake of us being able to do this, we're just going to make our lives a little easier and take a look at this extrude. Okay. Nope. Did not want that. Alright, we're going to make this slightly smaller. Okay. In actuality, it would be best to go change both pieces, but for the sake of our sanity for today, we're doing it the way we just did. Alright, almost final things here. Alright, we need an axle for our wheels and an axle for our little pin here. So our final pieces, we're going to extrude once more. Okay, we need this center circle here. Alright, all the way in the middle. We want this to be symmetric, and we need this to be the full 3-inch. Okay, that's our rear axle. Alright, and then our wheel axle here. We take our circle. We are making a new piece. It is symmetric. Okay, the only thing with this is that it needs to be wide enough to go through the entire shape. Originally, that's the 3 inches, but it actually needs to stick out just enough for both wheels to fit on. So each wheel is 0.75, it's 3/4 of an inch. So that's 1.5 inches added. So we can either do the math in here, or if you feel like it, in your head. So this is 4.5 inch. We accept. We rename this to our axle. Okay, and for our simple truck, these are all of our pieces for now. Okay, I'm going to pause here because this is very long. Can I have you take some time? If this is the object that you'd like to make, you can make it this way. And then I'll make a separate video momentarily of the full assembly, the wheel itself, and then creating the drawing files for your parts. Alright, so see you soon.